Okay, we are live here for Infinite Plane Saturnday, 1/11/2025. Interesting new year so far. Lots of news, lots of new developments. The latest current thing, let me see, lava spewing giant spiders, drones, fog. I think there's something else. Oh, yeah, there is some kind of indication if you go by some metrics that 119 might turn out to be some kind of a significant event. That's the date that Trump is having his. Is that the inauguration date or is that the rally date? I think it's the rally date. But anyway, 119, January 19th is a date that we have noted for its significance a few times before. So let me bring this up. This is from Blank Check on Twitter. Okay, this is interesting anyway, because it's just getting into some of this Metascript, this Donnie Darko, Donald Trump connection. So this is from Michael in Truth, and I'm very critical of a lot of these dates between dates, or numbers of days between dates, and why it somehow predicts things. I don't think it's a predictive model. However, patterns are patterns, and it is interesting to see how movies are used in a recurring way to consistently represent someone. But in this case, Donnie Darko was released on January 19th at Sundance 2001. And it's kind of a side topic, maybe something for a deep dive, just to go into how many movies had to change their script because of 9/11, or had to change their marketing, which was the case with Donnie Darko. But anyway, here's what they're saying. Because according to this channel, we're waiting on Head Wound Part 2, the next 9/11. And so he did some calculations here, and it turns out from September 11th, 2001, until this January 19th is 23 years, 4 months, and 8 days. Now, why would that matter? Well, it matters because Interstellar is a movie which is about these individuals caught in a time warp, and that's the exact number of time that they are stuck in the time warp. 23 years, 4 months, and 8 days. So if you take 9/11, add the number of days in Interstellar, you get this next coming January 19th. Does it mean anything? Not necessarily, because there is this thing called the sharpshooter fallacy, which is a form of cherry picking, but I'm willing to look at this one a little closer, specifically because Donnie Darko has been consistently used in the body of prescient predictive programming. And you may have heard me talking about this idea of faking space junk as like an art project. Well, someone beat us to it. They faked a piece of junk from the Canadian Space Agency. Here it is. The Canadian UAP fell out of the sky in Boston. But anyway, this is a interactive exhibition in downtown Boston, and it looks exactly like a piece of space junk fell from the sky and hit somebody's car. I would have had legs sticking out if this was my piece, but it's blamed on the Canadian Space Agency. All right, phones are going to be open right from the get-go here, and I want to go ahead and advertise the voicemail. I think that perhaps we should leave it open to people who aren't here live, but who want to leave voicemails for on-air play. So from here on out, you can call 505-510-4226 anytime, day or night, and I will accept all voicemails. All right, let's see who is here. Frugal Snowbird, Diana Southard, Conspiracy Alarmist, LAC, Roxy W, Ears Up, Reverse History, Ted Stryker, Deprogrammed Truther, Zinbillis, and Lean Dion. What's up, Armin Ree? Good to see you here. I have to say the last year has been interesting in terms of our conversations, our debates, and it's exactly as planned. I had said a while before that eventually our think tank is going to start having collisions with the various guardrail, truth or orthodoxy topics, and these debates are useful. The longer they go on, the more protracted they are, the more we can articulate the flaws in one another's arguments, or lack thereof. And I think that this is a great time to be involved in this whole conversation because it's evolving as this thing with Antarctica has shown us. And one thing that I think is standing out here is that there's a lot of attempts to use shame to get people to go along with the narrative when it comes to the final experiment. But what they're not going to do is, like, this is what the Globers think. Oh, look, this is a slam dunk. Your model's dead. Yeah, but who really cares? I mean, the biblical model is, because in the biblical model, there's only one son. There's no mention of two sons in the Bible, so that's kind of ruled out. But you don't destroy, or you didn't. It doesn't just eliminate this entire group of skeptics who are somewhat jaded or cynical, but they're certainly skeptics. Their reason for rejecting what is being shown to them is that they're somewhat traumatized by so much fake news and psyops that you really got to work hard to earn their trust. And Vapegate shouldn't have been a deal breaker, but at the end of the day, he did lie about vaping, and you get caught in one lie, it's hard not to think you didn't lie about something else. Now, I had suggested that they ought to just monetize this, and so I did them a favor and I came up with some kind of preliminary design. So if I was in charge of the TFE Final Experiments marketing department, I'd be like, hey, put Vapegate on a mug. So I was working on some designs last night and it occurred to me I could do a vape cloud in the shape of Antarctica. But I don't want to get sued, so I can't sell a lot of them. So I only have 5 listed for sale. Not going to sell any more than that. If those sell. If we don't get pre-sales, they won't print. But anyway, I think it's a great design. All right, moving on. I want to get right into our notes. So this is Infinite Plane Saturn Day. We missed yesterday, so I have 2 different sets of priorities to discuss. We already talked about why the final experiment failed. It's because they burned a straw man, and nobody cares. Okay, let's go into this one. This is from yesterday. This is people realizing that Elon Musk is willing to lie to make himself look better or for something. And so this is an interesting one. Is Elon Musk faking his gaming prowess? So here's the accusation. Elon Musk has been live streaming himself playing a game called Path of Exile 2. Now, he's proudly and seriously pretending, according to these individuals, that he got there himself, but he obviously outsourced the work to somebody else. And at the last minute, he takes control. So did Elon Musk legitimately earn his way to this top level? Well, according to a lot of the gamers, he doesn't seem... Oh, looks like that particular tweet got deleted. It got de-existed. If Elon Musk is willing to lie about something this small, what else would he lie about? So here's what is being alleged. It is being alleged that he's live streaming himself playing a character, pretending he got there himself, but the veterans are laughing when it seems that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
At least a level 75 jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us how bad the item that only drops from the highest difficulty of the hardest boss. Just tell us that it's only level 52. Did you find this at level 52? That's impressive.
Level 52 here.
Now, to be honest, I don't know why this is funny, because I'm not familiar with this game. But the people who know what this game is are reacting to Elon Musk playing the game, and they are given the impression that he didn't really get there himself. And the comments on this video are pretty savage. And one person said, if he's willing to lie about something this small, what else is he willing to do? Well, you can laugh at this, but wait till you find out about fake space, which likely they never will. But it looks like he hired or outsourced the work of getting to that level, taking credit for... Like, here's a comment from Space Karen Monkey Killer. A rich person taking credit for other people's work. A tale as old as time. V Gorp. If he's willing to lie about something this small and go through the effort of buying an account or sharing an account to micromanage the way you see him, what else is he willing to do? He's effing around in multiple governments, including our own, and he's lying about something this small. Steven says he's a troll, he's a cheater, he's decorating himself with other people's merits, and he does this in every aspect of his life. Stolen Valor. Feels Gouda says, this must be how Tesla or SpaceX engineers feel when he opens his mouth and pretend... Yeah, this is savage. I'm not going to read it all, because I don't want to lose my blue check insulting the emperor. But a little insight into how his mind works, or whoever. I mean, I happen to think that Elon Musk is a construct. I look at him as a Frankenstein, as a composite character. Okay, now with regard to Los Angeles, people are spreading the same rumors they did with Maui. The right is saying malfeasance, DEI. Left is saying climate change. Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan, and while they were talking, Mel Gibson is denying climate change as his own house burns. And the left sees this as tremendously ironic. According to the right, this is again the fault of Newsom, but also apparently blue roofs and blue painted cars aren't burned by direct energy weapons. Now, this has already been addressed and debunked as selective noticing, but that is something that's being brought up again. But I saw a new twist. According to Benny Johnson, in this particular tweet, the California fires left these white crosses on the Malibu Hill untouched. So this is being lauded as some kind of a miracle. And a lot of people have responded to it, basically getting in the chats and, praying over it. Well, it turns out that this particular footage of the crosses that were spared is from 2 years ago. Like, nobody checks anything that they post, and people get super sentimental about it. But I was like, well, maybe they should have put white crosses on all their roofs. I mean, if the argument here is that they're somehow, I don't know, fire repellent. But people are very selective. Some people are like, oh, look, God is doing this to punish the people in Los Angeles for their sinful ways. And others are like, oh, look, God spared this house because they have crosses outside. Like, okay, well, what's up with that? Are we talking about the same God? Truth Hurt says, imagine having this much of an emotional response to a work stage like these people. Yeah, I think that's another thing to consider too. People are truly tied up with this and they're offended or they're shocked by that, but they have no clue that the fakery is a million times deeper than that. I mean, yeah, so he cheats on a video game. He's the front man for some lies that are so big that they're practically impossible to describe to people who are at the level of being shocked by his cheating on a video game. Like, it is almost like pointless to even get into it. Yeah, Mars is not going to happen. We'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, so let's continue here. We have my points of interest. Pizzagate's gunman. So I talked about Pizzagate the other day, how it was started by Jack Posebek in Comet Pizza. He live streamed there, and then somebody goes over there and he holds the place up. He shoots a hard drive. If you remember the guy who shot up Pizzagate, likely a fake operation. But anyway, he got killed by the cops. So Pizzagate gunman fatally shot by police outside Charlotte in traffic stop. Now, let me just play this. I'm really trying to get past Vapegate. I really am. I know I put it on a coffee mug. I'm trying to get past it, but there's a good reason why. So let me play this clip here. This is a slight throwback where Witsit Vapes claims that he has a friend from NASA who works and lives in Antarctica and claims that you can only see the sun for 6 months, that there's no 24-hour sun. Let me go ahead and play this clip. This is Witsit in his own words, and this is from like a year ago or something.
You can directly see the sun going around Antarctica.
Okay, bro, look, you're
Well,
missing the
24
whole point of
hours
this question.
plus.
He asked
That's
you
not
to-
true. That's not true. That's not
Hey,
true.
so
I know
what
someone that was
I'll post another video.
I know somebody that was stationed there for 6 months for NASA and said you never see the sun in the sky for 24 hours. You just see daylight.
So his friend from NASA says you never see the sun in the sky for 24 hours. You just see daylight. And again, this is Witsit Vapes It talking about his friend from NASA. And you can trust people who work at NASA.
Sun in the sky for 24 hours. You just see daylight.
I personally know a former NASA employee that was stationed in Antarctica for 6 entire months and said never once did he see the sun in the sky. No one said you.
So there you go. There you have it. what does that mean? I mean, how can he? And so we're being chastised, impugned, and attacked by people that used to like this whole group of critics and skeptics. We're being attacked for not believing this guy. Okay, like, and I don't even want to say their names because I don't really care about these people, but the usuals. They're saying that people like us who question this stuff are just deplorables. Like, we're the worst. And I'm like, wait a minute here. You're getting mad at me for not trusting this guy who lied and claims he knows somebody from NASA, and we can therefore trust him, and that this guy from NASA claims that there's no 24-hour sun, and this wasn't that long ago. I mean, we can't even trust him about the vape. Okay. Yeah, Armin Reese says, liars and fakers, tired of them. Yeah, how do they sleep at night? Lean Dion says, foundational liar. Well, see, there's different types of lies. Like, normies are liars in the sense that they've been lied to, and we live in a world of lies, and we're unwitting liars. But this is a more deliberate form of lying. And I wouldn't say it's psychopathic, because it's not like he's crazy, or just high, or in another universe. It's more sociopathic. It's calculated. It's manipulative. I don't know. I don't trust him. And because I don't trust him, I am giving myself time to come to terms with the final experiment. And right now, I'm just not interested in forming an opinion about it. I mean, it looks like a bad Netflix movie. I'll just leave it at that. In fact, I think they're going to make a bad Netflix movie about it, like a documentary. And I think Candace Owens has her hands in that. And she's a pretty big world stage troll. I would say a provocateur. And I think a lot of these individuals don't believe anything they say. I think they're just paid to say it. It's very inconsistent because she spouts these viewpoints that are completely hypocritical coming from her. But, it's all about the money, if you ask me. What are you people insane, says Mark Sargent on the critics. Yeah, it says Mark Sargent, who never sought evidence for the dome and has no way to explain now a 24-hour sun because he was pretty much married to the domed enclosed one sun thing that was compatible with the Bible. And you can't use the Bible as a basis for flat earth anymore because it specifically says two lights in the sky, sun and moon, day and night or something like that. So how are the Bible earthers coping? Not that the Bible is specifically a ball book. I mean, it doesn't promote ball earth necessarily. It's really not, it doesn't really make any attempt at any kind of cosmography. I don't really think it does. Is it even relevant? But yes, Mark Sargent called us insane for questioning someone like Witsit Gets It, who claims to know people at NASA who claim that there is no 24-hour sun. And now nobody's making that claim. It's just strange to me how people can say these things and not go back and at least explain the discrepancies. Like, here's a discrepancy. People get a lot of money for this stuff. So this person shares this picture of Mark Zuckerberg, who went on Joe Rogan's show. So Zuckerberg's been doing like MMA. He's kind of turned kind of right-wing. He's taken the Biden agenda out of Facebook. So here he is hanging out with Joe Rogan. And he's wearing something here, according to Twitter. Can someone explain to me why Zuck is wearing a pagan pendant tablet of the moon god Khonsu, symbolizing the power to open a gateway to the underworld? This became adopted into the Satanic Bible and Jewish Kabbalah. Okay, according to this guy on Twitter, he's wearing a satanic, Kabbalistic, pagan moon god pendant that opens up the gates to the underworld. Now, according to the community notes here, it does not symbolize, it says here, the pendant does not symbolize the moon god or any gateways to the underworld. It is a Jewish prayer for health and courage. And it says, may we have the courage to make our lives a blessing. Now, the person who originally posted this image and claimed this was a satanic symbol has received 1 million hits for this. So it doesn't matter if it's true or not. They're incentivized to spread a mistruth. And do they go back and then correct it later? No, not really. Why would they? But they're just as bad as mainstream. I'm really interested in how the QAnon people are still around, and they've managed to somehow weave this entire like community-generated fan fiction religion into accepting Obama. So for about 8 years now, the QAnoners have been claiming that President Obama was killed in Guantanamo, executed. And at the Jimmy Carter funeral, he was hanging out with Donald Trump, and they were just chumming it up and laughing. So now they're suggesting that maybe they were friends this whole time. Maybe Obama's a secret white hat, or Obama got converted. Although one group suggests that Obama was cloned, and the new clone is one of the good guys. But they're reality fluid. They really are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It's strange to me because it's like they're not accountable to the past. Here's the picture of the two of them just laughing it up. And I actually went to the Q people. I'm trying to figure out how are the Q people going to cope with this, where one of their main villains is just suddenly seemingly on good terms with their guy. Yeah, whenever somebody says the word satanic, I just kind of like, okay, you can't take them seriously. Satanic panic, moral panic is as fake as the pandemic, scamdemic thing. These are just tools for the elite to manipulate entire swaths of the population on the basis that the other side is going to contaminate them. Whether it's sin or the virus, left or right, it's all the same. Moral panics are created by the state. I mean, these aren't real. Pizzagate was pushed by all these provocateurs. That's why I brought up Pizzagate, because Jack Posobiec started it, and the guy who went in to Comet Pizza here, not only did the cops just kill him, Pizzagate gunman fatally shot by police outside Charlotte in traffic stop. Now, I saw some YouTube coverage of this, and people are connecting it to P. Diddy, and they're playing P. Diddy clips where he's talking about pizza, which are all fake. People aren't parsing AI-generated stuff from the real stuff. And then also, this is likely not true. His name is Edgar Welch. It says, Pizzagate gunman Edgar Welch shot and killed after flashing a firearm during a traffic stop. Well, it turns out, according to Ray Drones Jr., that this is the brother of Haley Welch, the crypto scammer who got famous for some crude meme. I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't shock me. But let me get back into this really quick. Again, Vapegate aside, people have been showing pictures like this. They're saying, hey, look, this is the mountain in Union Glacier 2016, and it looks just like the one in 2024. And people like Witsit Gets It or McToon and Fight the Flat Earth, they're saying, nuh-uh, or you're crazy. Don't believe your lying eyes. Believe us. Here's what is being written here, and I didn't make this meme. The pattern of snow accumulation on Mount Rossman is exactly the same. So again, I don't know. To me, they do look the same. They really do, but I think Rush Limbaugh and Jim Morrison are the same person. I don't know. This is Mount Rossman 8 years apart. But I took this picture and I posted it in Grok. And I said to Grok, can you compare and contrast the mountain above and below? And here's what Grok said. Based on the images you provided, it appears that the snow patterns on Mount Rossman have remained consistent over the years. Here's a comparison. November 2016, distinct streaks and patches with clear lines of snow accumulation following the contours of the mountain, evenly distributed, some areas more exposed. December 16, 2024, the snow pattern is remarkably similar. The same streaks and patches of snow are visible, following the same contours in 2016. The consistency in snow accumulation patterns over a long period suggests that the environmental conditions at this specific location have remained relatively stable. This is quite interesting, as it indicates a stable climate or microclimate effect on this particular region of Antarctica. So according to AI, they are the same. So if someone says to me, I'm crazy for saying that Mount Rossman hasn't changed in 8 years according to the photos that you have shared with us, I'm not crazy. Grok is crazy. So it's nice that I can kind of pass that off, because I kind of think at some point AI is going to start calling bullshit on a lot of fake stuff, and it's going to be ugly if they don't guardrail it. I had this conversation with somebody in Gilded the other day where I posited the idea that if you took all the guardrails, like for example, Wikipedia automatically is going to filter out ideas that are inconsistent with the worldview monopoly. So too is the AI being curated. It's being controlled. It's being guardrailed is their terminology now. They stole it from us, but they're using that term to describe how they have to control it so that it doesn't get, like for example, the Cybertruck bomber learned how to do that on AI, they said. He had some kind of AI script that somehow informed him on how to conduct his attack. There's some neo-Nazi who said that the AI taught him how to shut down the power grid. So this is being brought up a lot, so the public agrees that we need to do something about AI before it creates a problem. And I think the regulation over AI might be to prevent it from becoming skeptical. Because if it is skeptical, it might reach a point where its built-in bullshit detectors are going to prevent it from falling for state propaganda, and it might even be able to discern real from fake. I got fooled by a whale-sized clownfish. I now believe in them. But will AI at some point, if not controlled, spill the beans? Will it not make fun of stuff or call out things? Like, this is a simulation. This couldn't possibly be real because of, I mean, who knows? But my suggestion here was that AI, unguardrailed, might become skeptical. Okay, let's continue. Going through. MAGA is blaming DEI for California wildfires, just like they blame DEI for Trump getting shot. You see the pattern here? And this is why I say if it's a bifurcated PSYOP, if it has a perfectly split down the middle way of interpreting it, depending on whether you're left or right, it's likely a government PSYOP. Doesn't mean the fire is fake. Doesn't mean they didn't burn stuff. It's not like they care about inconveniencing people. They'll shut down your stores. They'll make you go home for 6 months or a year, whatever. But in this case, I think it's a government media-driven PSYOP. I mean, they may be bouncing off of natural cycles. Conspiracy alarmist says, Candace Owens' involvement in the Antarctica scheme, 100% fake without a doubt. That's my thinking. My thinking on it here is that it's too connected to mainstream to be anything but a production. Okay, let's see here. Catching up on your comments. We've got plenty to cover today still. Kevin Mooring says, JL says Trump Antichrist, and so is Obama. Yeah, they're definitely connected, and this is an interesting thing that he pretty much has highlighted, and there's a lot to it. But I can point to several examples, and these are in my IPS Deep Dive number 1, of the predictive programming narrative of the Trump character being taken out, where there's an Obama character in the same movie. So, for example, in Megalopolis, it's the mayor who sets up the Trump character for the assassination. He says, see you in 3 days, which I think is another reference to dying and rising again 3 days, because he does rise after being shot. But it's the mayor who organizes it. Then there's A Man in Fool, also based on Trump, and it has the mayor of Chicago in that movie, definitely based on Obama, who is behind taking him out. Also, I noticed, too, that same actor who plays the mayor in Megalopolis is the mayor in The Boys, where the Homelander is based on Trump. And guess who is the Homelander's main enemy? Like arch rival. It would be that same character. So there's a dynamic here that is very consistent in all the predictive programming for the Trump storyline here, as it involves this head wound and who's behind it. But I'll have to do a separate mind map on it. I only had a focus on July 13th with that last deep dive. But these stories go deep. You know, I was talking to somebody in our server this morning about the numbers, like 33s on everything and such. And a lot of that could very well be truther bait, as in misdirection to get people down alternative storylines instead of calling out the fakery. But what I find to be consistently useful and not misleading is sticking to the stories that are being told. These stories that are going to be fused onto the historic narrative as they write it, as they make history. Till says, what does your gut tell you about a 2025 lockdown, Fallout or Nothing Burger? I'm hoping Fallout, and I think it will be. My thinking here on this whole thing is Fallout, and that's been the build-up for a long time. In fact, if you remember, right before Christmas, we were playing the trailer for The Homestead, which I haven't watched yet, about a nuke hitting off the coast of Los Angeles, and then Los Angeles goes into lockdown. So we had already talked about this. And then Christopher Nolan's, Jonathan Nolan, who did Westworld and Fallout. Well, Fallout Season 2 was about to be filmed, and they had to cancel it. So Jonathan Nolan, executive producer from Fallout. Well, Fallout, of course, follows Oppenheimer, which is what his brother did. Filming on Fallout Season 2 paused due to the LA wildfires. Very interesting. Look what he said last month. This is Jonathan Nolan. I want to thank the fans of New Vegas for not burning my house to the ground. He accepts an award for the game. He accepts a game award for Fallout, and he says, "Thanks to the fans of New Vegas for not burning my house to the ground." That's kind of interesting. Coming from a Metascriptor, that's probably more than just a random statement. In fact, kind of reminds me of how the day before the Cybertruck burned in front of the Trump Tower, Elon Musk retweeted a tweet where it had the Cybertruck and then fire emojis, and he said the future. And it had a picture of a burning Cybertruck. A Cybertruck that was cracked and had like lava, it was about to explode. So there's this reoccurring theme here. But to me anyway, yeah, he's talking about thanks for not burning my house to the ground. That's a little unusual. But that's right beneath the same headline. Fallout director Jonathan Nolan on his audacious approach to creating a post-apocalyptic world. So when there's a nuke, the award goes to his brother, Christopher Nolan, who did Oppenheimer. The Fallout scenario, he's largely a part of it. And we have to give credit where due. They have another brother, a hitman, whose code name is Oppenheimer. Speaking of, Oppenheimer in the movie, I think there's a lot of symbolism in there we've talked about. They have the obligatory 33 pounds of marbles he has to put in the container. But the black hat that he wears, I think it's some kind of Saturnian reference. And I saw something today where Aaron Rodgers claims that he has been plagued by visions of some kind of man in a black hat. Now, I got to check again to see what kind of drugs he was on. But he talked about this thing with a man in a black hat. I don't know if any of you caught that. Let's see here. Oh, look, here's a headline about the story. Path of Exile 2 players are calling foul on Elon Musk's high-level hardcore character after he streams his struggle with core game mechanics. That was the part that gave him away. He's trying to act like, yeah, I belong here. I got here on my own. And clearly he did not belong there. Unbelievable. Well, I don't know. I mean, what do you call that? So look at this TikTok video. Los Angeles gets hit by a nuclear bomb. Sky's all orange. So just for the record, we didn't say Los Angeles was going to burn down, but we did say it was in the sights of predictive programming foreshadowing a nuke, some kind of devastating scenario to hit Los Angeles. And it's this echo chamber effect where even if you weren't watching it on the news, if you were in the theaters, you would have seen the movie posters, if not the movie itself. And here was something else I didn't get to. Another weird coincidence. Monday Night Raw, and this is not the only example. There's a couple examples of that Monday Night Raw seeming to forecast the fires. So you have this a character named Topanga from an old TV show called Boy Meets World, and she's highlighted at Monday Night Raw. And apparently, she trends on X. Topanga trends after Boy Meets World's Danielle Fishel is spotted at WWE. Topanga at Netflix Monday Night Raw debut. So Monday Night Raw is having its debut, big show, and it's trending because she's on the screen. At the same time, map shows fast-moving Palisades fire forcing celebrity evacuations in Topanga Canyon. So you had this concurrent use of that term, and it's trending for two completely different reasons. Anyway, somebody had noted this, and I was kind of putting this in the back burner, but then I saw other stuff from the same Monday Night Raw that seemed to have some kind of eerie coincidental links. So I'll likely pull that up here shortly. And then there was a drone tie-in. There were these planes, they're called super scooper planes. They can take like 1,500 pounds of water and dump it on the fires. And one of these planes was hit by a drone, and they only have a couple of them. So that has to also, I think that's something of a tie-in. Some are saying it was an attack. This is war, and they're trying to stop them from fighting the fires. But at a minimum, it does bring the drone back into this thing. Okay, let's see here. There it is. Aaron Rodgers won't stop talking about the Hat Man since his ayahuasca trip. Not much is known about the mysterious Hat Man, except Aaron Rodgers started seeing the shadowy figure after his ayahuasca field trip in Peru during 2020 and 2022. He says he'll appear in the distance, veiled by darkness, holding the corpse of a rabbit, sometimes a blade. All right, don't know what to make of it, but it kind of it's one of these characters that we see, a recurring character, the Man in Black in Westworld, for example. What's up, Mango Penguin says, I'm half awake, I'll listen as I doze. Well, it's deprogramming if you're listening. If you're falling asleep, it's all programming. There's no one there to filter anything I say. But if you want to leave it on and be influenced by it. Apparently, the Steelers game was just interrupted by a drone, says Joe Santo. Interesting. Well, the drones were a big story, and then now there's talk of they had to like regulate and restrict drones. There's something up with that, but that's definitely an important story. Let's see. There's Starboy Devoid says the beginning of Raw on Netflix, the pre-show package, was projected on a mecha-like four-sided structure set up around the wrestling ring. So this would be an example of concurrent programming. So it's not always just in the past where you could accuse us of cherry picking, but it's real time. Real-time alignments between what's happening on the news and entertainment. It's an inescapable echo chamber. So we have an article by Miles Mathis to go over. Miles Mathis is great. I don't agree with him on everything, but his research is impeccable. And he's one of the few who calls out the fakery for what it is. He's not a false flagger. Okay, he says, I'm nowhere near Los Angeles, but this is speculation. I want to get to the start of it here. He says, I saw the first reports Tuesday evening, and before I went to sleep, and I checked the overnight wind predictions. It says, weather's not completely predictable, of course, but they're accurate just a few hours in and out, and the professionals were confirming to me they would drop down about 5 miles per hour overnight. Let's see. I woke up at noon and I checked, and Wonderground confirmed the winds had been very calm across LA and wouldn't have been as strong as on Wednesday as they had been on Tuesday. Anyway, he's discussing weather reports. I want to find out the gist of this, or if it's too long of an article. He says, I don't trust anything the stars are telling us, even about their own homes. Remember, they're actors. They create fiction for a living. Yeah, that's a good point. And I brought up that actor Steven Guttenberg, who had become like the face of this thing, and he was a hero, and he was moving cars except for the electric vehicles, and how he was just like described as facing this big horror and helping the fire department or something, which makes no sense. Doesn't matter if you're an actor. You don't get to help the fire department. You don't get to be a hero in this. It doesn't make sense. But I just thought that's a strange thing. So we were kind of I was looking at this whole thing as, okay, this looks like it's a propaganda operation. So I've been very suspect of it. And then I noticed Paris Hilton was making a few appearances talking about this thing. And she kept mentioning her son named Phoenix and how she and Phoenix are in the ashes and they're going to have to rebuild. So I'm getting a bit of subtext. But I'll go over this Miles Mathis later. I want to take my time and read through it because it's pretty lengthy. But he's skeptical, as always, and I appreciate that. I see some people respond immediately with emotions. And they want to say, it's like, we got to be mindful of the victims, thoughts and prayers. And I'm like, you know what? You shouldn't be sentimental about this propaganda deluge. You have to not let them manipulate your emotions. James Woods fake cried on CNN. Oh, I'd like to see that. I mean, he's a major psyop actor. And I said this the other night. I think that crisis acting is the new Hollywood. Like, it's a status symbol to not just be an actor, but to perform in these world stage performances. Okay, here he is. James Woods breaks down in tears in CNN. And they'll say I'm insensitive if I suggest that he's lying or he's phoning it in, that this is fake, that it's some kind of psychological operation. And to be honest, I don't trust any of these guys.
Swim in the pool, and the next day it's all gone. But she came out with her.
And it's not hard to method act and feel bad for real victims and loss and all that. But even if he's like legitimately crying and he really feels that way, I really question the act of going on TV and emoting when he has a built-in political agenda. He's going to say DEI. He's going to say it was direct energy weapons or whatever it is they're going to say, space lasers, anything but climate change. While the other side is going to say it's climate change. It's just so predictable. And again, they are chastising Mel Gibson for denying climate change even as his house burns, as though it's just assumed to be the case that climate change caused it. And I've heard some lefties who do believe this. I heard one say, I want to apologize to the victims of the Maui fires for my part in my lifetime for contributing to climate change. Like, really? That's like, that's taking the blame for the victims over there because of your part. I don't know what you want to call that. It's like some significant guilt is what it is. And there is an NBC confessional for climate sins. But that guilt is intriguing to me because these are largely godless people. The cult of climate change has Gaia as a god replacement, but it's a similar construct. And I do feel like they act in a very religious manner. Realm Trotter says, my 4-year-old cries better than that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. At least he didn't laugh halfway through. Anx G says, is it true the Welch chick is the sister of Comet Pizza? I don't think it's true. I mean, I saw one meme. They have the same last name. I highly doubt it. It would have come out sooner. But he's the Pizzagate guy, and I don't think he's really dead. Because Pizzagate was a big hoax. Reverse History says, I was watching Videodrome for Autohoax 3, a James Wood tour de force on Truth in Plain Sight, mass media mind control. Oh, yeah, that's right. He was in that one. David Cronenberg. And that's back when special effects were far more visceral and grotesque because it wasn't all CGI. But Videodrome, I'll have to watch that again with new eyes because when I first watched it, I was just into the special effects and the story. But I remember, let me bring that up actually. It might be worth watching it again. 1983, Canadian science fiction body horror film. It's like a genre, body horror. Cronenberg's body horror, where it often involves special effects and prosthetics, but things that involve stuff happening to people that you could consider to be grotesque. Like, let's see what we have here. Sadomasochistic radio host becomes involved with Max. And what is it? Yeah, 1983. This is says first it controls your mind, then it destroys your body. Okay. Sounds like the metaverse. Videodrome was the first film by Cronenberg to gain the backing of any major Hollywood studio. But it follows the CEO of a station who stumbles upon the broadcast signal of snuff films. Layers of deception and mind control conspiracy unfold as he attempts to uncover the signal's source, complicated by increasingly intense hallucinations that cause him to lose his grasp on reality. Okay, I'll have to rewatch it. 777 says, thoughts and prayers equals louche currency for the demiurge. Yeah, you can send your thoughts and prayers. You can send GoFundMe. You can donate blood, tears. It all gets soaked up. I mean, they fake an event and they say a lot of blood was spilled. Then they have a candlelight vigil and people, they cry. So you have tears. So you have real tears, and then they donate blood for the victims or the survivors. So you have a blood drive and a tear drive. So you get blood and tears. You get your blood sacrifice. You get your emotion without actually killing anybody. Joe Santos says, the movie The Time Machine I watched today, and at one point there's a broken rock with the letters EMP. Well, EMP gives us the blackout. So a blackout and then fallout. Okay, here it is. Paris Hilton. I'm standing here in what used to be our home, and the heartbreak is indescribable. It was where Phoenix's little hands made art I'll cherish forever. It's devastating beyond words. So I'm just noticing that there's this reoccurring talk of ashes and Phoenix. So I want to address this. Infinite Jack went onto Mark Sargent's video, and Mark Sargent had put out some comment about the final experiment and why we should just believe them. And he asked Mark Sargent about calling things fake. He says, what about Mark Sargent believing in dinosaurs, and why won't he auto-hoax anything like shootings? And Mark says, what about it? The fact that you take pride in a term like auto-hoax, that everything is fake, worries me. You have to believe in something. Interesting. You have to believe in something. And I'm saying no, you shouldn't. You should disbelieve by default, and we should seek to become informed disbelievers or non-believers in that which is not supported by facts or evidence. We should not be believers. We should know. And there's a difference, a fundamental difference between knowing and believing. But you can't always know, which means you have to suspend judgment instead of saying, I'm going to take a leap of faith and believe what they said because it was on the screen, because I have no other recourse. You have another recourse. You can say, I don't believe it. I don't believe you. I don't believe in this construct. I reject that premise. Or I think this person's a liar. I won't believe anything he says. So I'm saying, as a skeptic, you have every right to not believe. And the idea that you must believe is actually wrong-headed. I mean, what's the point? You must believe, you must have faith? No, absolutely not. Especially not in 2025. That's just naive at this point. I mean, look at me. I believe in clownfish the size of whales now because I saw one on TikTok. I believed in it when I saw it. Reverse History says, I recommend Videodrome setting the 90s level sex violence surface theme aside. The writer's script is news benders reality aware. Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into here. Is because I do recall it, but I find it difficult to describe and I have to rewatch it because I remember the character gradually merges with the TV, and I think he physically, doesn't he like physically go through the screen? Some kind of weird, grotesque thing. But yeah, again, what do you all think about this? And one more point here, and this is a big one, because anybody who's ever tried to posit that the Earth might be flat has had to deal with straw men. So the straw man would be, the Earth is not a pizza disc accelerating 32 feet per second in space. But that's the only image you ever see. So here you have a straw man. Nobody here says everything is fake. We specifically say that the media is a liar, a strategic liar that lies when it can get away with it to the people who are trained to believe it. So if you are a believer by default, you're trained to be lied to if you believe your sources of authority just because that's what they are. But nobody here says everything is fake. That is a terrible straw man mischaracterization of skepticism. We're saying everything that's fakeable, that seems to be fake because evidence would suggest such, needs to be treated as fake until proven real. It's about shifting the burden of proof. This is basic skepticism. If you're not, quote, auto-hoaxing, you're not paying attention. You're a passive consumer of media. If you are not a skeptic, you can't say you're paying attention. It's the difference between being an active and a passive consumer of information. So no, he's absolutely wrong about that. And not only do we not say everything is fake, we have qualifications for determining. In fact, I have this article I posted recently, and it was, how can we be confident calling things fake, where I address this specific point. Let me go ahead and bring this up because I think it's crucial. But more importantly, too, I think we should also mention that the default position is to assume everything is real. Oh, everything on the screen is real. Like, you would call that flawed, right? Oh, let's just trust it because it's on the screen. No, that's just as flawed as saying everything is fake. So what's the middle ground? What's the right path? Well, the right path is suspension of judgment. And here's one reason why. New Jersey residents are suffering from alarming, mysterious illnesses and symptoms because of the drone sightings. You know, people get sick. They have psychosomatic effects just because they believe everything without questioning it. But here is the if. It's fake until proven real if there are extraordinary claims, hoax indicators, ready-made political agendas, crisis actors, and relevant predictive and concurrent programming. So it's got to check those 6 boxes. It's got to check half a dozen or more boxes for us to say it's fake, or for us to be suspicious of it. So we're not saying everything is fake. What worries me is how someone could be so uninformed about this concept of media skepticism, and having been involved in it for this many years. I mean, it's not like we've been debunked or disproven. We've been nothing but vindicated this entire time. Not that I'm trying to catch him up. I find it useful right now to remain under the radar. Let people underestimate applied skepticism directed toward mass media and entertainment the way we do. Let this remain under the radar until we reach our critical mass. Ted Stryker says Metallica played in Antarctica, so they say. If so, what gives? Well, Antarctica is not a fiction. There is an Antarctica. There were some questions, about the 24-hour sun. Did they go? Who do you believe? I mean, do you believe Witsit gets it, that there's a 24-hour sun? Or do you believe Witsit gets it, that his friend at NASA spent 6 months in Antarctica and can say that, no, there is not a 24-hour sun? He said both. Joe Saunders says, I didn't play Call of Duty 2, but people are making videos about how the game is about a drone war in America 2025. I just started watching Interstellar, And I got to the scene where they describe how, and this is another Christopher Nolan. There's a scene where or is it Jonathan Nolan? Which one of the Nolans did Interstellar? And I just began, so I'm not really that far into it. But so far, it seems to be this idea that we've gone too far with technology and the world decides that we need to step back a little bit. Christopher Nolan. And so they start telling the children that Apollo 11 was a hoax. That we had to do the hoax to cause Russia to bankrupt itself, trying to compete in a space race with useless machines, and that essentially it was a propaganda victory. So they rewrite the history books where they say that the moon landings were fake. Now, they're not saying in the movie that moon landings didn't happen. They're saying they're no longer talking about it because they're trying to set us back in time in terms of technology. But the rationale there was very clear, just like Fly Me to the Moon. The moon landing was faked, in my opinion, but it wasn't faked by America to trick the Russians. It was faked by world government to trick the world. Mazel said, I used to visit my old neighbors who used to work up there on the ice. I'll ask them. I don't even know if it's a worthwhile question. I mean, I'm not really stuck on it necessarily. Because if it is a conspiracy, then it's not something you can see from within the model or anywhere accessible to you on the model. I kind of think it would be useless to speculate without further investigation. And that's really not attainable right now. I think our focus should be the North Pole. No, our focus should be the monolith, the media itself. That should be the focus. You have to get off the grid mentally first, and until you do that, there's no getting off the grid. You know, getting off the grid used to mean, or it still means, somewhere out in the woods, away from the big cities, in a bunker, with ammunition, storable food items, and Bibles and all that stuff, so you can survive the apocalypse. But you're not off the grid if you believe that there is an apocalypse, or that there is fallout, or that you need to hide underground from Big Brother or the New World Order or something. So they have you in a mental prison, especially if you're in a state of fear. Okay, let's see here. Skyfish says, at this point, who gives a flying... About what? The moon landings? I think we all know. And one thing they don't talk about with these debates anymore, these flat versus round, is they never really got into the special effects, and that's the elephant in the room. If you're not willing to talk about special effects and movie magic, then you're not ready for the conversation. All right, so Black Ops 2 says, does it predict what 2025 would be? Let me go ahead and check out one of these videos here. We're just doing a cursory look here.
2025, and what that means is we are now in the year where Call of Duty Black Ops 2 was set in. If you played the original Black Ops 2, that probably makes you feel quite old, unless you're someone who's younger.
Okay, so the game is set in 2025. And let me see if I can get to the point of this. Okay, here we go. So it came out, this is from several years ago. I'm just trying to see if this contains, and this is a randomly selected video, but I want to see what it suggests that we're going to deal with in 2025.
There were no drones that you could buy and things like that. That more in the recent years, right? In the last, 5+ years, that's been kind of more common, maybe 7 years. Now it feels like every other person has a drone. Maybe not that common, but a lot of people have drones, right? They're not, obviously weaponized drones. Maybe, obviously the military, I'm sure, probably has something like that.
Okay, so he's droning on about drones, but we get it. The game, which came out years ago, is about drones, and it looks like it's all drone warfare for 2025.
For example, some of the technology that we have in Black Ops 2 is specifically for the military. We don't know everything that our militaries have.
All right, well, this looks like an interesting take. I'll go ahead and put a link to the video, but what he's pointing out here is that this game, Call of Duty 2, is set in 2025. And I point out, too, because someone had said, well, not everybody watches Netflix. I'm like, not everyone has to. Everyone lives in the same fictional universe. The one that the mainstream media projects, the one that everyone agrees that we're on in large part. And not everyone has to watch it. The fake news stories do guide the major narratives. But if you don't watch Netflix, you read books or you read comics, you play video games. In some way, it is getting to you. It's an inescapable echo chamber. And the video games are definitely an intrinsic part of the brainwashing. Deeply immersive. LA County admitted they lost control of their emergency system. Yeah, I saw that. It looks like they had sent out some kind of a false alarm. Let's see. Yes. Millions of people are getting erroneous alerts telling them to evacuate, even if they're 10 miles from any fire or evacuation zone. Let's take a listen.
Well, in coordination with our federal and state partners, how we can stop the messages that are going out right now that are not being initiated by a human action, to stop that and then understand how that occurred so that the tool can still be used for what.
Sorry, they all sound just high and out of touch. Okay, yeah, they incidentally, there was some kind of thing. They sent out an alert. Okay, let's see here. Is Greenland the secret center of the Roman Empire that still rules the world from behind the scenes? Is Greenland where they faked the moon landing? Says Neat Chai Pops. I think that's where they fake Mars right now. So Nick Hinton on X posted this. In the movie Greenland, a comet collides with the Earth and threatens to end the human race. A remnant survive in underground bunkers near the Pitifik space base. Is this a real space base? It says there's a city under the ice there called Camp Century that the Army built during the Cold War. And it goes on about there are conspiracy theorists like David Chase Taylor who believe Greenland is the secret center of the Roman Empire that still runs the world today from behind the scenes. And their flag looks like the technocracy's flag, the technocracy movement. And Elon Musk is the technocrat who wants to revive Rome. Now, Musk does have technocrats in his family. I haven't seen Greenland. I recall the trailer. And I do see the technocrat flag does kind of resemble that. And as far as Musk, one of his characters, because he's a Frankenstein, Gene Wilder, Tony Stark, Werner von Braun, Jack Parsons, he's got a heavy dose of Pope Constantine in him. And this is part of his role with X. But Greenland has been in the news, and so people are talking about it. I haven't seen that one yet. David Hazel says, fed in the chat 91 Oki. Yeah, 91 Oki, if you want to call in, 505-510-4226. Oh, is he one of those race warriors? He asks, is the host blank? Yeah, if you're looking for that kind of like Nick Fuentes Groiper stuff, you got to go to 4chan for that. All these incels, they're like, oh, we're being replaced. Well, it's because you're online all the time. It's like Saturday night. You should be out there procreating, fighting for your fatherland instead of hanging out on the internet trying to recruit for your race war. It's so stupid. I mean, I'm not going to say you're wasting your time. I'd rather have you here not propagating your genes. Yeah, hang out with us. Don't become social. Stay antisocial. Like, get replaced. Who cares? Benny Johnson claims that world-famous atheists are now believing there's God because they have been radically witnessed to by Donald Trump after his faith in God because he survived the assassination attempt. So this is interesting here because Trump faked, well, he was one of the individuals involved in the fakery, but the ear piercing by the AR-15, the miracle, God saved him but didn't save the fireman, yeah, that was a miracle from God. And according to Benny Johnson, who believes that crosses will stop fires from coming up your street. Benny Johnson says that Donald Trump is witnessing and converting people to God because of the fake event of July 13th. Now, if true, is it immoral? Like, is it wrong to convert people to believing in God even though the thing was fake? It's a fake miracle. But take a listen.
I've spoken with very powerful, very prestigious, world-famous atheists and agnostics who have told me that in their personal conversations with President Trump, Trump is witnessing to them because of this. They never spoke with Trump about God. These are billionaires and multimillionaires. These are world-famous people who are regularly on national television, and they're saying that Trump is using this assassination attempt to radically witness to them about his faith in God.
And they have been saying that the timestamp, he was shot at 6:11. And so that's a shout out from God to Ephesians 6:11, which says the armor of God would protect him. But it didn't protect the firemen. But that's, again, one of the tie-ins here.
And it has moved people towards saying there is no God to there must be a God because we've personally watched a miracle. I've spoken with very powerful...
So that's a miracle, right? He personally watched a miracle. Now, what's fascinating about this is that, you know, people who are atheists their lives, they've known about the Bible, but the Bible never convinced them. They've been atheistic, agnostic, they don't believe in God. No, I don't believe that holy book. But then they see something on TV they believe. So it's kind of notable here that when you're watching TV, if you don't have skepticism, you might believe in miracles without realizing it. I've said before that the moon landing was a miracle, a fake miracle by the state media to convince its viewers, the sheeple, of the efficacy of its priesthood and its grasp on the universe and its model. And in a way, this thing with Trump was a state-manufactured miracle. And look what it's done. It's converting people. But it's ironic to me that they're skeptical about the book, but not about what they see on the screen. And I don't think there are any real atheists, because atheists pretty much by default just accept the alternative God construct provided for them by the state. They just have it under a different name. So they're not even atheists. It's a big misnomer. Okay, let's continue here. Realm Trotter says, Whitsitt raised thousands several months back for his Audit NASA campaign. Then he went radio silent. Next thing you go, no, he's going to Antarctica, and he never mentions Audit NASA. So you're saying he raised money to audit NASA, he disappeared, and he came back to do this Antarctica mission. So what happened to that audit money? Do we need to audit Whitsitt? Did he spend it on his secret vape addiction? What happened to that money? Jack Poso, getting into the predictive programming business, he says the entire plot of Chinatown is about California water wars and how corrupt bureaucrats and predatory elite are dumping water into the ocean to create an artificial drought to devalue the land so they can buy it up. All right, interesting. I'm glad that no one just believes it's completely normal and natural. But they're getting it wrong anyway. You get it wrong if your opinion's coming from within the political horseshoe. And you just end up blaming the other side. I still think it's a government-run psychological operation using likely real fires. Like a controlled demolition is the best way I can explain it. A controlled demolition. So who do you all trust here? Do you trust Grok or do you trust the final experiment? So Grok says that the picture from Union Glacier, Mount Rossman, is the same, that they're strikingly similar. 2016 and late 2024. Grok says based on the images that I have shown them, the consistency is striking. Anybody here think that this is notable? How the snow patterns on Mount Rossman have remained consistent over the years. It says here, this is again from Grok, the snow Deposition is influenced by consistent geological features, but it says it's interesting considering a stable climate or a microclimate effect. I've never heard of a microclimate effect. I'm not sure what that is, but in this case, that is Grok's explanation for why it looks exactly the same 8 years later. I mean, maybe it is very stable. I don't know. But I think it's an interesting question. And I kind of brought it up just to show you that if you're examining a picture and you want to know if it's real or fake, you can just upload it and have Grok give you another opinion. Joe Saunders says Mel Gibson was at Joe Rogan's house burned, and he was the main character in Mad Max and Thunderdome, where he led the kids after the end of civilization. Yeah, Mel Gibson is an interesting character in this whole thing. Braveheart, and I've been talking about Trump in the Braveheart movie poster when he was shot. Mel Gibson is a starring character in the QAnon drama. They believe he's fighting the deep state because of these fake quotes attributed to him about blood drinkers in Hollywood. Mel Gibson also filmed Passion of the Christ, where Jim Caviezel, who was 33 at the time, died on set. And Jim Caviezel, of course, later played Tim Ballard for Sound of Freedom. Yeah, if you didn't know, Jim Caviezel actually died during the filming of Passion of the Christ. He was giving the Sermon on the Mount, and he was struck by lightning. He recently talked about it. Now, strangely, even though they were, recording a movie, they don't have video to corroborate this. Jim Caviezel died after being struck by lightning while filming Passion of the Christ. Jim Caviezel, I was struck by lightning. The pain Jim Caviezel went through while playing Jesus. The Passion of the Christ almost killed him. Quote, I was struck by lightning on the last shot of the movie. Miracles on the set. So would this make somebody a God believer? Miracles on the set, behind the scenes on Passion of the Christ. Like, if I thought this was real, I don't know. This is unbelievable to me. Where's the video? I want to see Jim Caviezel getting struck by lightning. Listen to him in his own words. And he did say to Mel Gibson, you got to hire me for this role because I'm 33 just like Jesus. Like, he threw it in there. Okay, here he is. This is a couple years ago. And he's talking about, this is on TBN.
It's well known. I've talked about it before. But prior to that, it was shoulder dislocation. And it happened in the weirdest areas of the movie. There's a piece where Mary runs to Jesus and she says, I'm here. Mm-hmm. And in this take, I went down. And if you put on slow-mo, you'll see.
Okay, that emotional music is kind of getting to me. I want to find the part where he talks about getting struck by lightning.
Miracles. And what I've noticed is Jesus, if you're close to him, he doesn't prevent you from suffering. That his closest friends are going to suffer with him.
That's right.
The greatest pain I ever felt on that film, even more than the hyperthermia, I was in a dream and I felt God's love. It was so powerful, but I knew he wasn't close enough.
Okay, hold on one second. This is a shameless act meant to manipulate true believers. And here he is about to talk about the lightning strike.
Personal relationship with Jesus.
Okay, I can't find that specific clip here, but I can only tolerate so much of him. It's the same character he played in Sound of Freedom. But the background music is just, it's too manipulative. It sounds like some kind of religious programming. But for the record, he claims that he was struck by lightning during the Sermon on the Mount, and it is during his 5th take. So here's Mel Gibson on the Joe Rogan podcast. It says here, I was doing the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was at ease because I knew my
plumbing problems anymore.
When did you drive up? Did you take this video that we're looking at?
Yeah, I was taking some of it. Rose took some, and
So what is the consensus here? We have all these celebrities that are coming out and talking about it, and I'm getting these like COVID vibes. Like, it sounds to me, I'm not saying that this entire thing is fake. I'm saying it's in the sense that like it's CGI. Like, I don't oversimplify things. Like, I'm saying it's controlled demolition. And I'm wondering how many of these actors are more or less complicit in this controlled demolition because they can sell it and the narratives attached to it. Angst G says, sequel to Passion of the Christ. Oh, there's a sequel to it that's coming out. I'll have to look into it. I haven't seen the first one. I've only seen Sound of Freedom with Jim Caviezel and his portrayal of Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard's a human trafficker. He's a human trafficker. He's being charged for that, but he was playing the role of somebody fighting human traffickers. But we don't have video of the guy getting struck by lightning, so you just got to take him on faith. So, do you remember that Illuminati playing card that has the guy with the question mark on his chest? It says interesting times. One of my favorite cards for a long time. Well, people are pointing out here that it looks kind of musky. Like, I'd like to go one day without talking about Elon Musk, but he somehow managed to make himself relevant in all these weird conversations. It's all meme magic. It's not just him, it's whoever's behind him. But another example of this Musk character just being, force memed everywhere. Illuminati playing cards. And then there's the Grok logo. People are pointing out it looks like the ancient theta symbol representing death, or the black hole from Interstellar. That's why I started watching Interstellar. I saw it was referenced here. I definitely see a Saturn connection here. I think it looks like Saturn more than anything. And the significance of this, it's very consistent with the X and SpaceX. This gets into the symbolism of the cube and all that stuff, but the number 42. All these things, this body of symbols. I should do a deep dive on the space program and the number 42. Like, Elon Musk has drawn attention to the deliberate nature of his use of the number 42 with regard to his entire SpaceX endeavor. 42,000 CubeSats. The number 42 is a tie-in to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But going deeper, we have found that number seems to symbolize Saturn. And the concept behind Saturn is this god of time, constraint, and death, and matter. But interestingly, it's all throughout the space program, not just SpaceX. Jeff Bezos owns a $42 million clock built inside of a mountain in Texas, the Sierra Diablo Mountains. So the 42 and the connection with time, it's a reoccurring theme here. It's the god of death. WOPR3354 says, thoughts on Do. Do is fake. It's fake because one way to know this is only right-wing conspiracy theorists believe in it. If something's only on one side, it's probably fake. If the other side has an alternate explanation. So one side will say direct energy weapons, and the other side will say climate change. And no, direct energy weapons, there may be weapons, but for the most part, the idea that these things are being used to do damage and that the news is just recording it, no. The news is producing these stories. And they're collaborating with government because media is government. It's just an extension of government. They were never really separate in the first place. So no, direct energy weapons is just there to scare you. It's not a real thing. Movie magic is the real thing. Like, some people will say, well, the Twin Towers couldn't have been brought down by planes, therefore direct energy weapons, therefore tactical nukes. No, it's a controlled demolition and cinema. It's special effects, cinematic effects. It's nothing more than movie magic. What got us to the moon? Movie magic. not engineering and physics. Thank you, Copaesthetic. We have 5 wrenches being passed out now. T-Dog 135, Ski 1384, Buzzy, Yagtavius Prime all now hold the blue wrench. Joe Santos says the movie Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy, another Matrix movie where we're part of the computer. And it's the computer at the center of the universe who says the meaning of everything is 42. So there you have this connection to AI kind of built into it. The number 42, according to, I think, most people who interpreted that particular use of it, it has to do with the ASCII code for the symbol of the asterisk. And it translates into everything or anything, like a random, perhaps representing free choice. But anyway, the number 42, the meaning of life, the universe, it means anything you want it to be. But there are deeper significances to it, and it all ties into Saturn, time and space control. And they do control time. You know, Megalopolis, if you haven't seen it yet, it incorporates a lot of elements from Dark City. Dark City, you have the men in black with the black hats. They call them the Design Authority. They have the power to stop time. They do a demolition in New York. You see something exploding. But they stop time, they control time. I think the Design Authority represent the metascriptors, the writers of our fake history, which is enacted through fake news, the top of the PSYOP department that make our history. I mean, our history is being manufactured, but somebody's writing it. Well, who is that somebody? Who is at the top of the pyramid? I mean, I don't have all the specifics, but we can kind of look at the patterns here and who would necessarily be involved. And so I bring up directors like Jonathan and Christopher Nolan because their movies are so intertwined with government propaganda, that is PSYOPs, that you have to conclude that they're part of it. They do not have any plausible deniability. They're lending their artistic vision to the, I guess, they're allowing it to be co-opted, but it's being co-opted for what? Propaganda purposes. I tend to look at movies these days as nothing more than advertising and propagating ideas. Planting post-hypnotic suggestions, boring neural pathways, allowing people to experience scenarios in a hypothetical in advance and react to it so they're already primed to respond to the real thing in a certain way. So for example, the Luigi Mangione and this instant love affair that people on the left had with him, and they still do. I listen to left-wing podcasts and they're all like, well, sure, murder's bad, but what he did was an expression of the popular will. Or murder's bad, but that was a CEO. Murder was bad, but I want to have Luigi's babies. Like everybody on the left has said this. And I thought, okay, what makes them so quick to jump onto this character? It's because to them, they see a story here. I mean, all we really know is he walks up and he murders a CEO. He could be a crackhead. We don't know. But the news media manufactures the story. And the story closely follows the story of the Joker. Kill the rich. Oppressed, fell through the cracks. They're being exploited by the people at the top. This is not an act of murder. It's justice. The Kill the Rich, where all the Joker's fans put on masks and riot. And then you have the people dressing up like Luigi. So I'm suggesting that the Joker movie provided a template through which to view, like a lens through which to view the Luigi story. Or The Madness on Netflix had the same thing, where CEOs are bad, and the people at the bottom, the Antifa types with the 3D printed guns, yeah, they're like Robin Hood and his band of merry thieves. You know, take from the rich, give to the poor, kill the rich, eat the rich. So I'm suggesting that a movie like Joker is not just there to entertain you, but it's there to condition you for scenarios and specific events that would be happening in the future. This is a consistent theme. In fact, I would say it's the purpose of entertainment. And that's one thing that we do talk about here a bit, is that the entertainment and the video games, like we were just talking about Call of Duty 2, they are not coincidentally aligning with future fake news events and agendas. No, they are timed. It's coordinated. This coordinated synchronization is one of the biggest secrets, hidden in plain sight. And the media will say, oh, it's just an eerie coincidence. No, they've been reporting eerie coincidences for a long time. These are not eerie coincidences. It's a pattern. And the pattern can be specifically connected to the same directors, the same agendas, and it's perfectly coordinated months, years, weeks in advance. Kat Constanza says, I was watching the news a few days ago and they compared the wreckage from LA fires to an atomic bomb multiple times. Right. And then you compare that with the Homestead movie that just came out. And this is part of the echo chamber effect. I mean, it all comes down to being mind war. If you're looking on the screen, this is a bear going viral because it's standing up. A lot of people say that bears don't exist or pandas don't exist. It's just people in costumes. A couple of things. I don't know how tall it is. I don't think this is as tall as a person, but bears do stand up on their hind legs if you've ever been to a circus. And the people who say bears are fake or pandas are fake, they're not skeptics. And I have to make this distinction. I don't want those of us calling major news media totally manipulated to be conflated with people who don't believe in pandas. People who don't believe in pandas are what I call low information disbelievers. They disbelieve something because they saw something on TikTok that contradicted what they thought they knew. But if you were truly a skeptic, you would actually do some other research to kind of corroborate your the impression that you could be given at a glance. But if you judge it just based on this one particular video clip without anything else, with no suspension of judgment, just immediately make a snap judgment on it, not waiting. Yeah, you might say, okay, that looks like a person in a costume. Bears are fake. All right, let's see what else we have here. XG says, do replaces or supplements nukes. You know, here's something I think that might be the case. Because one thing that's a consistency here is the use of ubiquitous threats. So mutual assured destruction. The threat of the nuke is that one person uses it, another uses it, the fallout affects everybody. You've got other universal threats. Space junk, for example. Global warming, the flood. But I think specifically climate change might be replacing the nuke. Like maybe they would like to have faked it, but they can't. So they just have to have a replacement that might even be even worse. Maybe even more of a threat than something that we could stop, because now it's out of our hands. So I kind of think that they are using climate change to achieve the same goals as they would with traditional war. Traditional war would be munitions and weapons, but what's the difference? And in this case, you could say that the West is waging war with the world because we are specifically the cause of climate change. But I think it's notable that they conflate the two. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you had that movie coming out and they make the big story about Fallout being canceled. And then the director from Fallout said, please don't burn my house down, like a month ago. What's up with that? Conscious Reality says, anybody brought up Tom Hanks' home being part of the fire, and 5 years ago he was in mainstream conspiracy theory? I haven't heard that Tom Hanks, but if these celebrities are driving this scenario like they did 5 years ago, it's an indication that, yeah, it's the same. Real news doesn't require celebrity endorsements to get people to believe it. Okay, his $26 million mansion avoids the fire. So explain this to me. That's right. He has a mansion on top of this hill and it survived. Explain this to me. Because some of the truthers in Q-Town have been saying that it's the deep state being routed. Trump's coming in and the deep state is burning the homes of the baby killers. Well, how come Mel Gibson's house burns and Tom Hanks' house is still up? And how is Tom Hanks still alive? According to the word you hear on Q Street, he was killed back in 2020. How did the Q movement not just completely fall apart? Because all of their main narratives have just disintegrated. Thrustazar says Elon's Boring Company could be planting TNT underground. Grangerman says Tom Hanks admitted he lied about having COVIDs on SNL. I will need that clip. I never had a hate affair with Tom Hanks. But Tom Hanks has this interesting relationship with conspiracy theories, and I think his son has something to do with it. Chet Hanks came out. He has a tattoo of the Illuminati triangle on his chest, and he said his family will sacrifice you at the FEMA camp if we don't stop talking about them. And he was joking, of course, but the tattoo was real. So it came off as kind of weird. Like maybe he wasn't joking. But Hanks was in a Dan Brown movie, a couple Dan Browns. He was in Mr. Rogers, which has some Mandela effect connections. So for some time, Tom Hanks has kind of been connected with the conspiracy theory realm. And the fact that he's involved with multiple Mandela effects makes him very suspect. But it's also believed that he and Oprah Winfrey are adrenochrome consumers. Not Shock says, I Care a Lot. It's a movie that predicts the corrupt healthcare system CEO murdered. Oh, really? Let me take a look. There was a movie called, I think it's called 6 Feet Apart. Let me see. Is it called 6 Feet Apart? And it was about these two individuals who are, it's called 5 Feet Apart. But they're forced to say 6 feet apart. So 5 Feet Apart is a 2019 romantic drama, and it's about two patients with cystic fibrosis, but they have to stay 6 feet apart, and they're trying to have a relationship. And he's kind of resisting the restrictions. So 5 feet apart is about breaking that 6 foot of separation. But this came out before 2020. And in 2020, we were all immunocompromised 6 feet apart. I Care a Lot 2020 follows a con woman who makes her living as a guardian, seizing and selling the assets of elderly people. Now, let me find the part that you mentioned. Now, I haven't seen this, but these ideas are very widespread. They saturate the zeitgeist. They're unavoidable. Like, I happen to think that zombie films in general have always been predictive programming for panic, panicking everybody, for panicdemics, for the quarantine, for the fear of the anti-vaxxer. A lot of that stuff is just programmed into you through the entertainment. Okay, so this does involve a CEO being killed. Very interesting stuff. I'll look into this one. Just going to bookmark it for now. I've been checking out The Madness, and I talk about that one a lot because my approach here, in order to demonstrate that we are indeed assessing things accurately, I will take a movie like, hey, look, this is the #1 movie. Let me watch this, and it will forecast what happens after. And we're right every time. And The Madness even has a bit of foreshadowing for Elon Musk's character as he's evolved after it came out in subsequent months, as he's become closer to Trump and the implications that people are taking from this. It's all written into that movie. Conscious Reality says, Tim, did you see my video on Tom Hanks the day before he announced he had COVID? He was at the Oscars being crowned with the Belton crown. No. Actually, you should send that to me because he was always doing weird things. Like he went to Australia with a Corona typewriter. Okay, I'll go ahead and download that clip. Martin Short 5-minute timers club. And remember too, he was like the first celebrity or the first person we all knew who caught the thing, and he was quarantined in Australia. And he was in Australia fighting climate change. If you remember at the time, Australia was on fire. So that's kind of another mirror thing here. There's a big fire first. So Australia's on fire, he's locked down, and then it was brought up that He was in a Dan Brown movie called Inferno about a super virus called Inferno. And Inferno, the movie, opens where Tom Hanks is quarantined, or rather, no, he's in a hospital. He wakes up in a hospital in Italy. So while Tom Hanks is quarantined in Australia in 2019 because he has the virus, the world's burning. The movie Inferno, he wakes up in Italy. Well, Italy was locked down at the time. So there were so many connections here. And our point here is that these celebrities are, crisis actors selling stories. Do you remember when Cardi B came out and she was like basically saying, hey, if this is fake, I want in on it. And then she gets all kinds of money by investing into home tests. I mean, it's everything here. Everything, it's just a scam. I spell PSYOP with a $sign. $, YOP. Yeah, okay, thank you. If you want to pass that clip to me. Okay, so this is some kind of cold open on SNL where there may be some kind of reference to, okay, there's Tom Hanks. So again, Tom Hanks is some kind of a devil to the Q people. They do believe he's like a top tier Satanist and abuser. They have all these accusations, but despite all that, he's still around. Let's play they think he killed Isaac Cappy, but in their defense, he used to post weird pictures on Instagram where it'd be like a child's missing shoe, like a random shoe on the ground, or other things, which you wouldn't really do if you weren't a serial killer. Okay, here's that clip.
It's okay. In this club, you can be completely honest. Anyone else want to try?
I'll go. Ant-Man's powers aren't...
Okay, so this is Martin Short's 5 Timers Club cold open. And it looks like at the 5:38 mark. Okay, here we are.
I'll go. I never had COVID.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Tom Hanks, I never had COVID.
All of them.
I'll go. I never had COVID.
Okay, what do you call that? I mean, isn't that dangerous misinformation? Shouldn't they be censored? You can't joke about, you can't say something like that. Truth in plain sight? I don't know. I think it's duper's delight. I think it's hilarious to them. I really do. I mean, we know what it is. We don't have to pretend over here. We're not anti-vaxxers. We're not media true believers. So you know that they know, and they all think it's hilarious because they run this place. The theater of Cywar. Joe Santos says it's confusing to the masses. Well, the masses are confused by design. They are misinformed. I mean, that's when I say people are programmed, what I really mean is they are misinformed. And the confusion arises from the mistaken assumption that the mass media provides a window to the world and it's informing you. No, it's a filter. It's not a window. And it's conforming you. The pox bottle says, thoughts, death is eternal glitch of energy light. Interesting question. I tend to be very skeptical about death. And I know what happens. I'm not in denial. I'm not even bothered by it. I'm waiting, actually. There's a new gas station across the street. Just had its grand opening. And I'm like, oh, wonder how long it's going to be before they have their first shooting there. Because people tend to get shot here at gas stations like around 10 p.m. So can't wait. But as far as death itself, I don't think consciousness is a byproduct of our meat suit. I don't think we're apes with big egos trying to cope with a meaningless universe. I think it's quite the opposite. So no, I don't believe that death is the end of our sentience or awareness, but rather it's, if anything, our consciousness that we experience when we're in the body is very limited to a small aperture. So I think death might actually be mind expanding in a certain way. Like we've been living in a very constrained format. And so I think of it more as maybe even an awakening of some kind. But I don't think there's some kind of instant disposition into, quote, hell, which is a made-up concept, or even heaven in that sense. Not quite sure. I don't have all the answers, but I don't think it ends. But I have reasons why I don't think so. I have several reasons why I don't think it ends. And I also, and I'm not just talking about what I took to be communications from the recently deceased, but also my own experiences with what I would term precognition suggest that there is some level of our sentience that is more of a field that transcends the physical body, that informs us through our intuition. So just given that, I ruled out the idea that we die when the body dies because our mind is no, if anything, this whole place is a subset of mind. So no, I'm just not really sure though. And I don't think any of the religions have the right answers. In fact, I think the religions are taking advantage of our ignorance on the subject. Save Seattle 611 says, could be Earth as hell realm. Yeah, it feels like purgatory, but we're going the wrong way. Because you're supposed to go, well, Divine Comedy, you go through hell, then you climb up purgatory into paradise. But I feel like this is kind of a middle ground. But I'm sure this is the bottom. Like, I think this is the bottom of the universe. Like, I don't know about shapes. You know, I don't care. I don't believe the universe really exists until we're living it. I think it's come into existence as we're experiencing it. But I do think that being incarnated is the bottom. This is you say hell, we just mean the bottom. Like our basest. And I think we might be somewhat caught between the bestial and the angelic, in that we kind of individually have to decide, you know, what's your dominant nature? Are you an animal with an intellect, or are you celestial? Are you angelic, operating within a meat suit and try not to let it get the better of you? I think that's kind of the dialectic here, but I don't think it's a complete split. Like, I don't think we're cut off. Like, so in other words, our awareness, even though we only get our sensory information from the body, I think our awareness does extend beyond it, but we're mostly cut off of any kind of higher information, except through rare glimpses. And those would be the precognition, telepathy, synchronicity, etc., or rare for most people. And I think that we're brought up in such a way and trained in such a way, and our dominant paradigm is set up in such a way that it is rare, and it's pathologized if it's not. But I think that the answer to the question as far as the post-mortem is an open question, but I don't think it ends. I'd like to think there was a hell. I like the idea. I think a lot of people deserve to pay. There should be some kind of retribution, but I'm not quite sure. I didn't make the rules. But Earth as a hell realm. I don't think it's. I don't think there's a like Dante's Inferno literary construct. Kind of interesting, where people get punished according to their dominant sin. And then Dante goes through and he sees each types of punishment that you get for what you spent your time in life doing. Interesting idea. Anyone else? Anybody here? Anyone believe that death is the end? If I thought that, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be spending a lot of my time contemplating and thinking. I would be like, I don't know. I would be a wreck. Like, I'm really not bothered by it. And given that I don't think it's the end, I keep that in mind. Like, I don't want to do anything that I'm going to be embarrassed about later. Like if I have to face people who exited before me. I mean, that's got to be something to consider. All right, let's see here. Moving goalpost Earth. Okay, so this was just kind of an idea I threw out there. I don't know if anybody is going to go with this, because there's like this crisis. How do you define it now? Flat Earth doesn't have a model. They don't believe in the ball Earth model. But at the same time, it's not really going anywhere. But I suggested, why not call it moving goalpost Earth? Instead of two poles, it has two goalposts, and they move whenever you get close to them. And I'm only saying this because the people who went down there, who are supposed to be standing on their own observations, don't seem to be adjusting their model. They're just getting mad at the people who don't believe that they went there. 777 says, the soul trap harvest makes sense, like something here wants us to give something up. Okay, that's another part to it that I will add. And this is just my personal belief, that there is some kind of a, for lack of better terminology, or spiritual war between light and dark. Like, in other words, I think that the world itself is a place of darkness and ignorance, and it's designed to take the incarnated souls and cut them off from their source so they think that all they are is matter. And if they can cut you off long enough from your celestial origin, then you can become of the world, of the material, of the matrix. In that case, I do think that you can be cut off and perhaps trapped. And I think that's kind of the Manichaean concept, a battle between light and dark. And I would even go further. And speaking for myself, I'm pretty sure that I am not solely of matter. I don't think I'm from, I don't, like, in other words, I do think that there's a sense that we are being beamed down. We are incarnating into this place. However, I think that there's an equal number of people who do not have a higher origin, but who are just byproducts of this process, who are all, for all intents and purposes, maybe even not only soulless, but inimical to souls. In other words, beings of pure darkness whose job it is to extinguish the light. And if this sounds far-fetched, think about human evil in general. The various types of evil and oppression, enslavement, and the various forms of cruelty that have defined us. And I think I'm very well justified in saying that, yeah, and I'm not saying that we're all good and evil and we all have an evil nature. No, I don't think I do. But I know lots of others do. And I'm saying that it's good versus evil. And I think that's not an oversimplification, but I think that not everyone is equally as involved in this conflict. Most people are just in the gray, they're ambiguous, and they're on the outside. And I think maybe it's something of a calling to feel that one is involved on a deeper level in this light versus dark. But I think that dark, ignorance, and evil wins by default. And most people probably do lose their souls. I mean, it wouldn't shock me. And I don't mean to be pessimistic, but I think the world wins. It's like a rigged house, like a casino, like a carnival, and you can never leave. I don't know. I mean, maybe we're all recycled. Tinkerbell says, if I see that light when I die, I'm going in the opposite direction. See, I've heard that advice as well, that we're in some kind of a loop here, and if you're not careful about your next decision, you might be stuck for another round. Kiddo Core says, so many neutral AFK NPCs. Right. Well, there have been several times in my life where I'm certain that there were people in my life who were on the other side of the spectrum. Just beings of pure darkness, evil, and low vibe, cruel, sadistic, predatory, abusive types. And I think that these types are very much not like me at all. And that, in fact, that I'm a counterbalance to such types. I think that if you are in any way operating from the level of your soul, you're not operating as a beast. You're not sacrificing the spirit to the material. I think that you will find opposition because the world favors the worldly. That's just the way it is. And I'm not trying to say this is like it's not a religious sermon. I'm not saying within any sort of a spiritual or established religious paradigm, but it's like there's a war on our minds, a war on perception, ongoing. So why wouldn't there be another layer to it? And it might even be that that's the layer that is meant to be concealed and hidden. Scotty Smith says, perhaps we are all gods that know past, present, future. The earth is a playground where we come with amnesia to experience humanity. Interesting. I kind of think that makes more sense to me. It makes sense to me that there's some kind of amnesic wall for you to enter this. And so I don't know if it's a trap, if it's volitional, but I have a hard time thinking it's just a playground. Like, I think the stakes might be higher, but I don't know. I don't hate it here, and I don't feel the need to escape, but I'm not going to pretend like it's perfect. And I don't think that any of the major religions do us any service, because I think that they're designed to keep us in darkness. I really do. Like, for example, the idea that intuition, precognition, telepathy, these types of things are witchcraft, they're evil, they're forbidden, they're not, quote, biblical or holy. These things are indications of one's personal connection that maybe doesn't fit within the confines of religion. And I think by putting these things into a box, they've kept them out of sight, out of mind. But I think these things might be intrinsic to understanding what we are. So, for example, synchronicity, I don't think is evidence of God or the universe talking to us. But I think it's an aspect of our own mind, our intuition, our higher, like, in other words, I think that we communicate to ourselves outside of our narrow aperture of the ego. And it's easy to externalize it and say it was God. You know, like many people who are diagnosed with some kind of mental illness will believe they're hearing voices from a God or a higher power. It's like you're probably hearing your own sub-vocalizations and you're just externalizing it. But religions do that. And I think they do it on purpose. I think the power elite don't want us to internalize our locus of control and perhaps even tap into that higher aspect. I think they want us stuck in the monkey suits. They want you in a monkey suit on a dead planet in a dying universe with no purpose, and the fact that you seek meaning is pointless. That's where they want you, and I'm just not there. And I'm perfectly fine with any cosmological model. I don't care. Spinning, ball, flat, it doesn't matter. To me, it's really about our place in it. Is it a cybernetic system, or are we separate from it? And I don't think we are. Kevin Mooring says, did you see the Pizzagate guy was taken out by Leos? Yeah, I saw that story. Art of Thinking Out Loud Live Common Sense Analytics says there was a war in common sense, higher perception, and art. Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we say there's a war on perception, they're telling you, don't believe your eyes, believe what's on the screen. Don't believe what you think or your own intuition, believe what the consensus says. That's a war on perception. And every psyop that introduces a lie into your worldview further enmeshes you in this thing. But I think that if you're also mentally in a model that doesn't match the territory, I think that might actually kind of create a bit of perhaps of a barrier between higher consciousness. Like, you know, there's this reoccurring theme with any religious path of asceticism. You have to leave the world, climb a mountain, get away from the world in order to get in touch with this. I think there's some real value in that. Because I think if you're totally plugged into this thing, you're plugged into a paradigm that doesn't have a soul, that denies that you have one. Tinkerbell says, the only thing all religions agree on is life after death. As a funeral director, I know there is an earthbound period for energy. Interesting. I've worked around. Well, I was an embalmer, but I did a lot of transport, and I've spent a lot of time, around the death care profession, and I didn't hear a lot of people talking about life after death. I didn't really get that, but I do hear a lot of that stuff from hospice nurses, talking to people who are near death, claiming that they're suddenly seeing people they used to know when they're in that transitional state. Many will say it's just delusion. But I've had what I would define as almost poltergeist. Like, I'm talking physical things being manipulated as a seeming direct communication with one recently deceased. And I've had this happen a few times. And it also seemed to me that the disincarnate, the non-corporeal, the recently deceased do have some way, and I think I know how it works, but it's just my theory, but they do have some way of communicating that involves what we would describe as coincidence or synchronicity, the manipulation of the order of events, that there is some kind of continuity. But anyway, it's an interesting topic. We should talk about death on one night in particular and focus on it and what people think about it. Plain Dakota says, I've never died. Okay, now when it comes to reincarnation, it happens to be the case that the symbolism that we see, the occult subtext behind a lot of the rituals and the mystery schools themselves all seem to point to this reoccurring theme of death and rebirth, like, recycling of souls. Not quite sure. All right, let's continue. Infinite Plane Saturn Day. Now, again, these are just for... I'm not really going to be selling these things. I don't want to get sued. Vapegate, what's up now? My main point, my main takeaway from this, after having enough time to examine all the evidence, is that all they did is they burned a straw man. It didn't move the conversation anywhere, and the people who don't believe NASA aren't going away. And the people who do believe NASA believe all the fake news. They believe all the psyops. They don't have any clue. So who cares what they think about anything anyway? All right, here's what I alluded to earlier. There's 2 super scooper planes that pick up 6 tons of water at a time. That's crazy. And one of the 2 has been taken down by a drone.
Chief of LA County Fire reminding that, as you said, a felony is a federal crime punishable by up to 12 months in prison. And there's some serious fines that could be attached to it as well. So, the drone situation, let's not fly the drones when the airspace should be reserved for the firefighting.
So what's up with drones? And a couple of years ago, we were talking about how there were National Guard drills being conducted in Texas for dirty bombs delivered by drones. Call of Duty 2, drones 2025, good to know. These video games are very prescient. So I think it's fair to say drones are going to be a main character for the rest of the year. Elon Musk chimes in on some old Donald Trump predicted programming lore, kind of weird. He says, just a coincidence with a wink, in reference to Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey by Ingersoll Lockwood. The earliest example of predictive programming that mentions Trump, Pence, November the 3rd, disputed election and riots. That book from like 1898 puts Trump on the world stage in the way that we recently experienced in the last 5 years. And interestingly enough, Elon Musk is chiming in on it. The Pox Bottle says that's a winner of a mug. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to get sued, but I'm not really worried about it. I don't think it'll go to that. I'm only selling 5. So if you do want a What's Up Now mug, I do have 5 available and 5 only. And I feel justified in doing so. Really because Witsit Gets It said, and he said this 6 months ago, that his best friend that works for NASA has firsthand evidence that there is no 24-hour sun. So let me play this clip one more time, because I think this is very enlightening. And this is, again, Witsit Gets It talking about how his NASA friend, who was stationed there for 6 months, says that there's no 24-hour sun.
That's not true. That's not true.
I know someone that was another video.
I know somebody that was stationed there for 6 months for NASA and said you never see the sun in the sky for 24 hours. You just see daylight.
I personally know a former NASA employee that was stationed in Antarctica for 6 entire months and said never once did he see the sun in the sky. No one said, you're not following.
Now, that's just hearsay. But whatever happened to this? I mean, whatever happened to that story? Just deleted it. And then what happened to the money that he raised to audit NASA? And then he disappeared. And he came back to go to Antarctica. Like, this is raising a lot of questions, and I think we need some answers. Let's see. Donald Trump was sentenced to... Okay, they kind of just dropped it. The Stormy Daniels thing. It was never going to happen. Okay, here's Trump talking about hanging out with Obama at the Jimmy Carter funeral. And again, this has QAnoners kind of puzzled. They're perplexed. Because from their perspective, Donald Trump was nearly assassinated by Obama back in July.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it.
Okay, anyway, they're all backstage. They're all bros. Art of Thinking Out Loud says Elon's brother owns the most popular drone show company in the world. They do Olympics and other high-level events. See, I didn't know that. And then Trump was hanging out with Daniel Penny and J.D. Vance at that Navy game, and the commercial had a Palantir commercial for drones. So the drone psyop was not an organic panic. It was provoked. It was stimulated. And I think we can say the same for everything else with drones, especially with Call of Duty 2. I mean, if it's in the video games, it's going to happen in real life. These things have been consistent predictors. All right, well, this has been great. Appreciate all the comments. This is Infinite Plane Saturday for 1/1/2025. I have to go do my homework. I got to read this Miles Mathis piece, and I want to also catch up on a few other things around here at the office. This is going to be an interesting month. And, of course, I think I'm going to send out the archives likely later tonight. So if you haven't subscribed, go to ips.monster. We'll continue to build on this conversation. It's ongoing. I need to watch The Homestead. It says a nuclear bomb detonated in Los Angeles. The nation dissolves into unprecedented chaos. And the main character is an ex-Green Beret. So the Green Beret thing was brought up with the Cybertruck bomber. And then, of course, Luigi has the association of Luigi with the green hair. And then one other narrative that's jumped up recently, ChatGPT advises infamous neo-Nazi on how to attack the U.S. electrical grid. And then AI planned the Cybertruck bomber, Matthew Leibelsberger, and he used AI to plan the explosion outside the Trump Vegas hotel. So they're putting AI into this context where people are afraid of it. And I think they want to get our consent to completely censor it for our own good. But in reality, it's for the media's own good. Because if the AI becomes skeptical, what could go wrong? I mean, I showed you that image a little while ago where I asked it. I said, analyze these photos of Mount Rossman right here at Union Glacier from 8 years apart, and Grok said it was the same thing. And finally, Joe Rogan has recently converted to Christianity. I mean, not 100%, but it sounds like he is. So Jake Rattlesnake posted this. Rogan's tone shifts. He acknowledges that religion, while man-made, could make the world a better place. This is a significant moment because Rogan is starting to recognize the moral and social value of faith and Christianity's vision of human dignity. So I asked the question, is something shocking about to come out about Joe Rogan? Right-wing podcasters have been converting to Christianity or becoming extremely religious right before something really bad comes out. So, for example, Andrew Tate became Muslim right before it turns out that he's a human trafficker and a raper and all this stuff. And then you had Candace Owen converted to Catholicism. Then you had Russell Brand, all those accusations made against him, he's converted. So it's been this reoccurring theme. And I'm wondering, why would Joe Rogan convert to Christianity unless something's about to happen? It just, I don't think there's anything organic about it. Maybe he'll have Russell Brand baptize him. Have you seen those baptism videos? Like, I wouldn't want to be downstream from those guys. But anyway, that's kind of their new thing, I think. It's like to kind of pad the public reaction, provide a buffer. It's like, look, I've already made some changes. I'm already converting. I got my free pass. Okay, we also talked about Elon Musk lying about Path of Exile 2, faking gaming prowess. Faking gaming prowess. Let's see what else. I don't know what to make of this. LA Fire Department chief said, "Am I able to carry your husband out of a fire? He got himself in the wrong place." So the whole argument against DEI is flawed because it presumes that the standards have been lowered. Well, they haven't been. That's not really how it works. But that misconception isn't helped at all when you have this firewoman saying that maybe I wouldn't be able to pick up your husband, but maybe he shouldn't have gotten himself into that position in the first place. I mean, that's insane. Let me play the short clip. This can't be real.
Their situation better? Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
He got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire. You're hearing this from a fireman? A firefighter? That is insane. But this is obviously creating a ton of outrage. LA Fire Department blaming victims for getting stuck in burning buildings. This is a huge comedy. Anyway, thanks for the comments. This is Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms, Auto Hoax, or GTFO.